All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Ron. A little after 6 p.m. Uh, let's begin today with questions. See if we have any questions from anyone. Well, let's do this then. On yesterday, we started off with questions and we uh, end up going to Genesis 2, verse 16 and 17, and talking about uh, the tree of knowledge and good and evil and the tree of life, and kind of tying some things together there. And specifically seeing ourselves, which is where we are now, looking at who we are and what we are, what some of those responsibilities are, uh, as being the seekers of truth for mankind, and having that to be our uh, sole desire is to bring man into the enlightenment that he uh, so he can see himself and be one with his creator the way things were intended to be. So we focus on not only love and compassion, but on forgiveness, and from there, those are the focuses of our lessons, no matter where in the scriptures that we go. So, uh, any questions on any of that, or comments on anything you may have seen? Okay, Sheldon, are you on this evening?
Yes, I'm on.
Did you have any thoughts? I know I wasn't sure anyway whether or not we concluded with Jeremiah or not. Did you have any thoughts or anything that you wanted to go with there, or continue with rather?
No, I didn't have anything else unless there were any questions. Yesterday we kind of continued to talk about what was in Jeremiah 17 a little bit. I kind of always feel like the things that we're talking about, or what the Bible pretty much leads us to, is more so just to point us in the right direction, and to understanding and dealing with, these certain concepts, or whatever. So I feel like,
Hmm.
Jeremiah 17th pretty much did that, in terms of pointing us in the right direction, or in a direction to start considering certain things and dealing with certain things within ourselves. But like I said, it was just more so of a spark. If anyone has like any questions, funny, like from a funny situation, I can tie it what we were talking back to Jeremiah. But Jeremiah,
Yeah,
is, you understand, is not the important thing. The important thing is that concept to become rooted within us, and for us to actually become aware of, so to speak. Jeremiah is just the allegory for something much bigger.
yeah. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was I was sharing with Pastor. I read something that said anyone who embraces the Shekinah has found his pleasure in eating. And I've been kind of sitting on that a little bit. What does that mean to you? The Shekinah, another word for the Holy Spirit. Uh, Someone can help me with this part of it. Uh, Shekinah and Holy Spirit, uh, based on uh, some of the things that we've read over the years, it's seen as being feminine, the feminine aspect of God, of the Creator. So and if somebody can explain that a little clearer, I would appreciate it. But I just likened it to where we put a lot of our focus on the balance of understanding feminine energy and what that means. So, does that statement though ring a bell to anybody or speak to you in any way? Because one of the things it causes me to look at or think about anyway is what are the pleasures of Egypt? Excuse me, of Eden, because Eden means to delight or have pleasure. So, what would be that pleasure? Where if finding the Shekinah or the feminine aspect of the Creator or the feminine aspect of you takes you there, what is the pleasure that is derived from that? Anyone?
I have a question. So, and this is Evelyn. So is the Garden of Eden not in our mind, our thoughts? I know it's not a physical place, but the Garden of Eden, it's got to be something dealing with the pineal gland. Yeah,
It's
I don't know, but that's what I
but
see.
excuse me, everything that spiritual does indeed deal with the pineal gland. Um, the Garden of Eden is a spiritual state of being, as opposed to, as you said, it's not a physical place, even though religious folks are looking for it. It's the spiritual state of being. And that spiritual state of being, if you embrace the Shekinah, then and you are experiencing the pleasures of Eden, then you've been pleasured by that state of being that you have embraced. It's no different than saying, delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. But when you look at what it takes to delight yourself, it's pretty much the same thing, embracing the Shekinah. Does that help, Evan?
It does, which is beauty, right? Balance and beauty.
Balance and beauty is a state of being, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I have a question. I have a question that I don't know the answer to, okay? Go ahead. Somebody else could say something. If the Shekinah is the feminine aspect of our Creator, and it is, then what's the masculine aspect? I think I know the answer to that question now. But anyway, what do you think it is?
Repeat that question right quick.
If the Shekinah is the feminine aspect of the Creator, what is the masculine aspect of the Creator?
Thinking about and looking into the making of the one from verses 22 and 106 of Thomas, when it was talking about there no longer being just plain male or just no longer being female, but there being both. And studying and trying to understand it, the understanding that there is the idea of the feminine in terms of opening and being receiving, but the other part that goes along with that is that of giving as well, in terms of taking in, not for any like personal reason, but for the purpose of also sharing and giving that same thing off, serving as a conduit. So in a sense, when we're talking about what it was that Jesus was trying to tell the disciples about being in the earth, in terms of I'm now sending you to be me. I'm now sending you the same way that the Father, in biblical terms, of the Lord of the universe sent me to receive and to actually give, all at the same time. More so as we talk about it from being Adam. So it's more so the principle in terms of receiving for the sake of giving. Traditionally, from a religious standpoint, we know it as being blessed in order to be a blessing. That same concept. I'm finished.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
In Sheldon's answer, I see the answer to both questions. I see the pleasure in what I think it anyway. I won't say I see it. I think I see a response to it. I won't say I see it. That what you describe when you embrace the Shekinah, what you describe, Sheldon, is that balance is an intercourse that is continuous. And that is the pleasure. It is both giving and receiving at the same time. So the answer then is to Pastor's question, then I suppose, is once the two embrace, is there a male and female? Once the two become one, is there a masculinity and a femininity, or does that duality disappear and they become male, female, just one being? And again, spiritually, of course. But I just a lot say when he went back to that verse in Thomas, just kind of opened things up a little bit. I'm done, Pastor.
Okay. Anyone else?
I have a response, or not a response directly to Ron, but it conjures up something. But I will wait. Definitely allow anyone else to bring forth some input first.
Okay, go ahead, Sheldon.
Piggybacking on what Ron said, I definitely think both of those things are meant in a sense to happen, like it has to be both of them. I think in terms of masculinity and femininity, I think we experience being on one end or the other, just in terms of being aware of it in a sense. But at all times, both of them actually exist. And I think that actually goes back to Ron. We talked about it personally, but a question that you also mentioned in terms of the tree of good and evil and polarities. It is all of a sudden the awareness of the idea that these two things can be separate. They can be a good and a bad. And then because there's a good and a bad, there's a different type of experience. But it's always the case that there is no such thing as good and bad. They're just more so a focus on one, which then changes the experience. And once and when we are able to understand that and walk into that, then all of a sudden the experience that we have is totally different. So in a sense, I'm trying to figure out how to put this in words. Eating of the tree of good and evil absolutely can be confusing. However, eating of the tree of good and evil in itself is not necessarily horrible. You then have a better understanding and a better appreciation for the universe in an instance, because you could not have experienced the universe in a different way had it not been that perceived difference in terms of good and evil. Was that clear? Do I need to keep speaking on that? Does everyone understand exactly what I'm saying, or somewhat what I'm actually saying?
I do.
It's the same idea that in order to experience joy to a greater depth, you had to have known or seen or experienced pain.
Yeah.
So in order
Yeah.
to embrace and appreciate the sun, you had to experience the rain. Those things in their own right already existed from the very beginning, and they had their own greatness within. But it wasn't until you understood the opposite, the drastic difference or the absence of them, that you truly understood and could embrace the value and see it in a different way. You would have taken it granted, taken it for granted otherwise. So the concept of good and evil, I don't think was necessarily a bad thing in terms of being punished. It was just more so, hey, stuff is really going to at the beginning get very, very bad for you, and be perceived as being terrible once you do this. But at the same time, it opens up a lot of stuff, and in a sense, is meant to happen, of course, because it is of, in a sense, the whole. But it's just that we have to come back around to it through a journey. But it is through that journey, in a sense, that there is value that is added.
I agree with everything you said. It
Yeah, I
gives
like.
us
Go ahead,
gives
Pastor.
us
I'm sorry. I just.
okay. It gives
Yeah.
us even a clear understanding, a different approach of functionality and dysfunctionality. And when we talk about tree of knowledge, good and evil, and tree of life, functionality and dysfunctionality, it gives us a clearer vision of that, helping us to see that without unripeness, we would not know the value of ripeness. So I agree with that 100%. However, I still want to know what's the masculine. I think I see it. Go ahead, Ron.
No, I just I guess I can't answer your question. I like what Sheldon said. That is a dichotomy that we still see today, and just about the illusion of a dichotomy. I'll even say that plays out every day, and how the world moves every day. If
Yeah.
you look at the from races to religion and truth, I mean, it's yeah, that's it. So that's a principle we still haven't, but I don't know pastor's answer. I don't know the masculinity portion.
The
I
go ahead.
this is Audrey. I think the creator is both, but and not really separated out. And we see or experience the feminine when we need that and the masculine when we need that. So I don't think it's an opposite of anything. I think it's both, and we see or perceive the one that we need at the time. And that can be taken to extremes where the creator is perceived only as masculine by some people. But anyway, I think it's both all at once.
The dichotomy which you mentioned, Ron, is going to exist until the two becomes one.
Yes,
So
I agree.
that's going to exist until that happens. The idea of the Shekinah being the feminine aspect of the creator also speaks to giving birth to something, being the womb. And if that's it, then the womb needs a seed. The masculine aspect of the creator is the word, the concepts are the masculine aspects of the creator. And when we embraced the Shekinah birthed those concepts within us, and we began to see them clearer than we've ever seen them before, or we began to see the true nature of them for the first time. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And again, that plugs right into that saying from Thomas that Sheldon referenced.
Yes.
The male becomes female. Yeah. That when you become one, it all you are getting is truth, and that's the offspring from it, and the rest of it is oneness. Nothing else matters. That's all you see.
Excuse me. When you embrace the Shekinah, that's when you experience an internal birth. When you embrace the Shekinah, how do you embrace the Shekinah? It is if you have no respect for the manifestation of femininity, then it is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to embrace the Shekinah. However, when you have a deep respect for the manifestation of femininity, then it is much easier to embrace the Shekinah as being the agent of birth of everything that is. And I also think that speaks to the concept that all humans came from the womb of an African woman. So that, again, that femininity is that womb that gives birth. And the question at that time becomes, is birth, so what you going to do with it? Or what's birth within us? Are we going to take that understanding and manipulate it for our own purposes? Or are we going to take that understanding and dig deeper so that all of humanity can benefit from it? And those concepts begin to live because we nurture them. And we nurture them. And when we are nurturing these concepts, we are indeed manifesting in the Shekinah internally. And every time that we venture to understand the truth, then what we are doing is not only embracing the Shekinah, but we are also nurturing those concepts that are birthed by the Shekinah. I hope that makes sense. I hope it's clear. Any
Well,
questions or comments?
I have a question. Yes, sir. So when the two become one, are we then the multi-breasted one? Because you talk about the nourishment, nourishing, and the nourishment. So is that when we become the multi-breasted one?
The multi-breasted one is the concept of uh, um, Almighty God. The multi-breasted one speaks to the idea of being able to nurture multiple people, for lack of a better term, at one time. Right now, when we are talking and we are nurturing the truth that you have received and making every effort to understand, then that means that we are nurturing everyone who's in that space of making efforts to understand what's out there, what's been said. And so that in itself is simply oh my God, what's that word I'm looking for? Metaphor that speaks to the nurturing that we give to everyone who's seeking truth, to understand it, even to each other. Because when Ron first started talking, he had to be the multi-breasted one in order for all of us to receive nourishment from what he was saying. Does that make sense, Ellen?
Yeah, so isn't that what Abun is? The
You are LP.
multi-breasted one? And we are, yeah, okay, I got it. Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any questions or comment?
I got one, Rev. I'm gonna have to put this in the way that I understand it, the way y'all saying it. It's just like a husband and a wife. They have children. That the masculine of that man is being a leader. And if he gonna try to guide his son in the right way and make him see the kind of feminine side of that woman, he have to listen to the woman or what she's trying to tell him, like, honey, you might not say that right to your son the way he could pick it up to understand it. Go back there with this word and tell him this way. And he mowed around his mind, but baby, you was right. I'm glad you talked to me and told me. I saw that I was telling him in a harsh way to where he didn't understand. So he go back and say to his son, what his wife had told him, say, but he realized the kind of her telling him to tell his son the right way. You understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but that's not a clear description of what we're talking about. What you're describing is a duality. What you're describing is a man and a woman being separate from each other. What you're describing is a society where males dominate. When you say the male is the leader, the male is not the leader of the household. The male is a part of the household, just like everyone else is. And when we are talking about the Shekinah, we are talking about a spiritual entity, a spiritual being that brings that bursts everything spiritual. For example, we have been talking about let me see which example I want to use at this time. We've been talking about Jesus being in the tomb and being resurrected and becoming a spiritual being at that point. Well, suppose that the rolling away of the stone by the messenger, the angel, which is actually the messenger or the word or the concept of the creator. Suppose that is that is synonymous to the opening of the womb for spiritual birth. Now, what I just described as the opening of the womb for spiritual birth, that is birth within me from the Shekinah, the spiritual, is not a discussion between a man and a woman. It is an experience that is internal, and the manifestation of that is a respect and recognition for the manifested femininity. But when we talk about the masculinity of the male being the leader in the house, that in itself minimizes the effectiveness of the the female in the house. So that is a concept that is foreign to the scriptures. So I'm hoping that I'm making it being clearer with you, Charles. If not, I appreciate if someone would help me explain if you can see what I'm trying to say.
Okay, go back to creation when God created the man and the female, the feminine energy and the masculine energy. And where that the feminine energy, I don't know how you put that, but it started with way back in the creation, second creation. But man, he had talked to man and had said, do not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And he didn't until.
No. Let me stop you right here. Charles, please. Let me stop you right here.
All right.
That's religion. He did not talk to the man. He talked to the spiritual being Adam. And Adam was both male and female. The delineation between the two, or the separation of the two, did not come until flesh was put on them. And that brought about the separation or the dichotomy that Ron was talking about. A manifestation of the spiritual being of masculinity was male. A manifestation of femininity is female. These are the illusions that were brought into existence for us to learn how to fully become Elohim, for us to begin to truly embrace the oneness that we are with masculinity and femininity. Does that make sense, Charles?
Yes, I got it now.
Okay, because I please understand, not just you, Charles, but Adam is not a proper name. It does not describe a person, because personhood in terms of flesh and blood had not been brought into existence at that time. So if you look at the meaning of Adam, it is the spiritual entity through which the essence of his creator flows. Okay. Does that help?
That helped a whole lot.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
I think you pretty much covered it, but I was going to ask you to go back, because that is another misunderstanding that we get from religion about the leader thing and the head of house and you obey this, and we messed that all up, and we don't understand what balance looks like, and how to see ourselves and be one. So that was one. I'm glad you talked about that. If you could elaborate even further, it would be helpful, I think.
Well, when we talk about, first, let me see if there are any questions or comments before I elaborate a bit further. Okay. When we talk about balance, what we are talking about in reality is learning how to balance the spiritual with the material world. When the two becomes one, when we learn that balance, the material world is not going anywhere. It's going to be here. It is here for us to exist in. That's why it was brought into existence. Our objective is to balance between the feminine, between the material and the spiritual. Right now, it's totally out of whack because everything that we need to sustain us, we look to the material world for that for that substance or sustenance. When we understand that the spiritual is the true sustainer, because without the spiritual, the sun, the rain, none of it exists. That's the true sustainer. In order to sustain a balance in the material world, we have to learn to respect each other, meaning that we have to develop a healthy relationship between not only male and female, but a healthy relationship between people who don't look like us and don't think like we think. We have to learn to develop a relationship to the extent that our primary objective is to make sure that all of humanity in a physical way is taken care of, and all of humanity in the spiritual is seen as one unit. And the only idea of separation is when we look at the physical aspects of the being that was created. When Jesus was resurrected, what happened? Jesus did not come back into this world as a purely spiritual being. He came into this world and manifested in a physical way, and that's the reason they were able to see him. So what I'm saying in essence is that this material world is going to exist, and the objective again is to balance it. That was the balance between nature and the spiritual. And when I say nature, I'm including mankind as well. That balance was kept by humans. It was mankind who kept that balance. And that is the reason mankind was able to communicate with nature, whether it was a tree or whether it was a buffalo. It didn't matter. That balance existed. And the thing that threw that balance off was greed. The thing that threw that balance off was religion. The thing that threw that balance off was all the isms, inclusive of racism. Those are the things that threw that balance off and brought into existence a chaotic society. And this society of which I speak is a worldwide society of chaos. And that chaos was brought into existence for the express reason, for the express purpose of us bringing order to it. And bringing order to it is the thing that we have to do in order to be the manifested creators that we were brought into existence to be. Does that make sense? Questions,
It
comments?
does.
Okay.
Okay. Based on the last thing you said, be what we're designed to be, and the question that we opened up with today, learning to embrace the Shekinah and becoming the pleasures or indulging in the pleasures of Eden. That takes me to the question, and I think you answered it, but maybe you want to elaborate more. Because of what happened, if you go back and look at the scripture, was the purpose of Egypt clearly defined before the I hate calling it, it's not a sin, but the before Adam before Adam did what he did, I guess, was there a purpose defined that Eden was supposed to be? Are we back there looking at that, the original purpose of Eden? Is what I'm asking.
We never left Eden. Oh, we were outside of the garden because the Eden, the garden was east of Eden. So we never left Eden. But we never brought pleasure to it either. And the reason we didn't is because it was designed that way. When we get upset with the isms, please remind yourself that it was designed this way. If there was not chaos, there would be no order to bring. And if there was not a dichotomy, then it would not be up to us to make sure that as above, so is below, which means that when the two becomes one. So all of these things were brought into existence for an express purpose. Without them, we would never be creators. Without them, we would be just a chaotic bunch of people running around taking advantage of each other. But that was not the purpose for the creation. It was purposely done for us, for that created being who is us to be one with the creator or one like the creator. Now, as far as the spiritual is concerned, we are one. We can embrace that easily. But in order for the as above, so is below to be effective as it was supposed to be, a creation has to take place. And the creation that must take place is the mindset of those who has brought about this chaos must be changed. And the two, when the two become one, that means that this earth that we live on, this terrestrial ball called Earth, the consciousness of it has been changed or has been advanced to an understanding where it is synonymous with the mindset of the spiritual. So that's when the two becomes one. It's not just male becoming and female becoming one. It's all of that intertwined because because of where we are in this in our thoughts. We have to take the time to reassess what all of this means when we talk about the two becoming one and the balance that we are seeking. And I hope I'm not talking in circles. If I am, please help me by asking questions or making comments. Am I making sense so far?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, Reb, I understand.
Okay. What about the rest of you guys? Oh, well, I don't know what to do with that. All I can
That's
say
making
is,
sense.
oh, okay. Thank you all. All I can say is this. Everything in the material world is manifested in duality. And when the two becomes one in the material world, that duality will no longer exist. However, the body structure of a man and a woman will still exist. So if that is the case, how is it that the two becomes one within the realm of the earth as the two are one in the spiritual? When we embrace the reality of who we are, and we began to see that functionality is impossible without male and female being on the same page, which is manifested femininity and masculinity. When we see and embrace the reality that neither one dominates the other, they complement each other for the benefit of humanity. When we begin to do that and we see it reproduce exponentially, it is then that we begin to see the balance taking place in this realm. And we begin to see the consciousness, the state of awareness, it begins to change because because of the masculinity and femininity beginning to respect and to embrace each other as the same, but with different functions. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
It does.
Okay,
Can I make a comment?
of course.
I remember how when we would sing on the choir, and this is how I look at it. When we would sing on the choir, there was balance and harmony. We became one. But the minute someone would go to the left, I don't know what happened, but it hit the wrong note. It just threw everything off, which caused the duality. Am I looking at that right?
Yes, you are. And that same harmony that you are talking about exists in the spirit world. And we as creators must bring that into existence in this earth realm. That's the harmony we are talking about. That is a great example of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm hesitant to try to add to it for others that may be struggling, but it's still speaking of the same thing. The Shekinah means a dwelling place for which God dwells. And when we talk about both the masculine and feminine, and Ms. Evelyn using your choir example, it's not as if the person who is letting the Shekinah, in a sense, dwell into them, that they're giving up something, being less of themselves as an individual. It's more so that they're actually walking into being more of who they would normally walk into being. So, for example, we've all experienced maybe dealing with a child or someone that we could understand they may be acting out and they're being less than who they actually are, or the idea of, I know you're better than this. We know that what it is that you're presenting or being at this particular moment isn't your true self, or more so is it isn't all of yourself. When it comes to the Shekinah and the masculine and the feminine, it's more so the idea that you are willing and understanding that you're not so much of letting God dwell in you, but you are being the God that you are, in terms of you are being more, and you're being of what is actually needed at the moment. So everyone automatically, whether we want to admit it or not, abides by these masculine and feminine principles. The idea of there's something that is actually happening, I nurse it, I meditate on it, that things gives birth, and it becomes something within me. I tend to it, and then I tell others, or I impart that within the world. When we talk about the Shekinah, it is saying, and this is why we talk about it being similar in a different time, being what Jesus was doing. You are being the God that you are. You are allowing that to dwell within yourself, or in other words, you are allowing you to be that which you already are, nursing that, and then imparting that as needed into the world. So you become both a receiver and someone who is actually giving all at the same time. The point is, you're not receiving nor giving just for yourself. You're being something more than that. What I mean by more than that, your identity, or who you walking into an understanding of who you are, is more than the individual that you may be just, or you experience as being at times in this experience in this earth. Hopefully that helps. If I'm finished, if there's any thoughts, questions, or comments, hopefully it helped, and it wasn't actually confusing beyond what has already been said. I'm finished.
That's
I
your
don't think it
cue,
was
Ron.
confusing. Yeah, I was just saying, I don't think it was confusing. I understood it. Anyone else? This is a perfect example to me of how everything we've studied comes together. You know, it all fits and comes together, and every lesson now, every word that is said tells us that we're in the right place. You know, so another beautiful tapestry of words came together this evening. If there are no other thoughts or questions, maybe we'll come to a good place. We can stop for the night.
At some point, I would like to talk more about how to balance the spiritual with the physical. Okay, not tonight, of course, but at some point, I'd like to expound on that some more. All right.
Okay, sounds good. Anyone else questions or comments? Yes,
Yeah,
sir. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just had a quick thought while thinking about what Evelyn just said in terms of the choir. And let's say if the choir was singing some song, and the choir as a whole wasn't the best singers in the world, but then you had one singer who was really, really good. Let's say Aretha Franklin, Whitney Houston, Tamia, or somebody, right? In that particular moment, in terms of what was actually needed, if everybody else is off tune or off beat, but they just so happen to be a little more in unison, or that one other person could actually fit a particular key that brings them together as a whole, they then would actually need to be off key in order to make those other individuals, in a sense, great or good, adding in their missing piece. However, if they were just perfect amongst themselves by themselves, the only thing it would have did was just thrown everything off, because then at that particular moment, now everybody is off, and they actually don't have the ability to actually get to that same key or rhythm as the Aretha, Whitney Houston, or Tamia. That's what I thought about in terms of what Evelyn just mentioned in terms of the choir. The Shekinah is being there for what is actually needed, not necessarily just that of the individual, but in order to do that, the Shekinah puts you in a position of being open in a sense, because your identity goes beyond that of the normal self, because you are acting as more so the whole versus the singular individual. Hopefully that analogy was not confusing.
You just you reminded me. And I mentioned this because I used for example a couple of times. The ETV did they were doing some specials on weekends with jazz artists and some older jazz artists, and I remember this one guy said he was a bass player, but he was saying they could play, and he may not have seen these artists in years. He may have played with them before, but hadn't seen them in years. But when they come together and they play a piece, they could play ad lib, like someone does a solo, and he take off on his own, but everybody picks it up and everybody can follow. Although this was not rehearsed at all, but everybody knows that so-and-so's leading. He has the lead, and everybody can pick up that and follow suit. And it's just beautiful to me. So I hear what you're saying. You become what is needed. You become what is there. So the rhythm is always there, and you just fall into it. You just submit yourself to it. So anyway, you just made me think about that.
Ron, I heard a jazz artist say the same thing, and he said when all of them became one, they went to a place, and there was no time, no nothing. They were in this particular place, and they were playing before they knew that they had been gone for, in this particular place for a certain amount of time. It had to be about 4 o'clock. They had met around 6 o'clock. And when they finished playing, and in that special place, they said it was around 4 o'clock in the morning. Is that the same thing as us being, as the two becoming one? It's like an orgasm. You know what I'm saying? You're right in that place where there's no color, there's no time. It's just you in this particular place. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Makes beautiful sense, and that's what we're talking about. Just being in that rhythm, just caught up in the rhythm, and just being there. Yeah, the one artist said, like he would be in some part of Europe, and he'd hear about another artist in a different part of Europe, and he's like, I want to go play with so and so. So he leaves and go play with this guy, and the guy didn't know he was gonna show up, and next thing you know, they got a quartet, a quintet, or whatever, of musicians playing that hadn't seen each other in years, but they find that beat, they find that rhythm, they find that place, and nobody's like, I'm the best, or I'm the head, I'm the this. It's just I'm here. I am my bass is here, so and so's trombone or whatever. We're all just here. We're just all a part of this. We're all just part of the rhythm. But the orgasm part is real. That's the part that sounds kind of gross to us and we don't want to talk about. But that part is real, and that's part of this pleasure that we talked about earlier when we talked about female cease being female, male cease to be male. You just become one, and it's a continuous pleasure. Yeah.
Ron, and hearing that, I'm thinking that everyone is sure or comfortable with who they are. So it's not like I have to go and outdo, but it's how you come together, because I know who I am, I know who she is or he is, and when we come together, it's awesome. So that's how I see it. I was a little thrown off, but it makes sense now. It is. I can see that as being so pleasurable because we know who we are.
Now pull that together with you internally. All those voices, all those egos, all those ambitions that we have, all those prideful things, and we pull them in to be one. They don't disappear, but we pull them in to be one, to be in harmony with what the note says, what the rhythm says. So when we have that desire to be one with the universe, and we see truth, and we learn to ride their wave, and we bring all of us under submission, and all parts of us rather, and that's what helps to bring the rhythm to others, for others to see who we are, because we have experienced this thing that we're trying to capture. We've been captured by it. That same rhythm that grabbed the musician has taken a hold of us.
I got one more question. So is that meditation? We look at it as a ritual sometimes, some people just harp on meditation. So what we just described, is that a form of meditation?
I would say yes. I'll hope someone else will speak to that. I agree with. I think it's a word that's overused, but when we can come to ourselves or come to the present, that's I think that to me speaks stronger to me than the word meditation. But to come to the present, come to the here and now. I think that's it exactly.
Yeah,
Or someone else may.
yeah, I agree totally. Of course, you can't necessarily describe perfectly what meditation is like, or but you can try to say different ways that it looks like, and it looks like in terms of as Ron said, being in the moment and being flexible, being vulnerable, being confident, not pushing or forcing, and just seamlessly becoming whatever is needed or wherever you go at that particular moment in time. And in doing so, meditation actually goes beyond, in a sense, of just the intellect, because it comes from a deeper place of just moving without actually thinking about it. In a sense, you just flow there seamlessly, and it feels automatic, almost effortlessly. If anything, where the initial effort comes from is not blocking that and actually allowing it to happen, and kind of like letting go.
Um,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pastor.
I believe that the nature of meditation that Jesus spoke of when he was talking about prayer, we call it prayer, but it's actual meditation. That meditative state has nothing to do with intellect at all. It has more to do with desire. And in a state of meditation, it carries you to your past, present, future, all at one time. You are in the now, in that moment. And when those musicians of you, where you're speaking of, they are there, all of them are in their present. They're in their now, not just the presence of each other, but they are in a space where all of them exist as one at the same time. And so that's what meditation is: the existence in a space where everything is one. There is nothing outside of that. No existence of a past, no existence of a future. Everything is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Does that
Yeah,
help?
that was everything we talked about today is very enlightening. It elevates me, and I really appreciate the family coming together and pulling it together. That's what we do. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Beautiful discussion. Beautiful discussion. Thank you. I hope everyone's had a great weekend. Have a great week. we'll pause right here and resume Saturday. And thanks again. Hope you have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.